last 20 miles out before I got here, 9 accidents on 35. I'm like, it's not even raining or snowing. How are you having this many people have accidents? I'm like, cars turned around going the wrong direction. And like,
it's one straight line.
yeah, it's like.
Y'all want some water? Can I grab some water? Sorry. I got plenty of hands.
Okay.
You're good? I'm gonna grab 1, 2 takers.
Matt came from restaurants, if you can't tell, he's very into hospitality. So, yeah, he used to manage Hillstone Restaurant Group. So, that was actually where I came from too, and made my own career transition because restaurants are tough. Like, it's a really hard thing to be in. So, yeah.
You have to have a lot of resiliency.
You do, yeah.
Because not every day is a good day.
Yeah, especially when you get those customers who are so upset at something, and it definitely was not your fault, but you take it like it was, you take full accountability for it, so you have to really own that, but it can wear a tear on you for sure.
But see, that's where somebody with low emotional intelligence would come back and go, really? Did anybody die? Is it that important? Chill.
Yeah.
I'll fix it. Yeah, you get the tip on that one.
Yeah. I definitely thought it, but I had to filter it, so.
Yeah, I do a lot of people watching. It's interesting to watch people interact and watch the things that they get happy or excited over and how different that is compared to the other people in the same room. And it's just really interesting. Something that's so minor and small to me, to this person is the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it's just, you just don't know what's going on in each person's life and what they're dealing with, because that one small thing to them was the straw that broke the camel's back, because you don't know they're dealing with a divorce or a medical issue or something else going on in their life, and that's why it was such a big deal for them. So it's always just interesting just to think, what was going on, what was happening, and why is that such a big deal for that person. So it's a psychologist in me.
About ready to go, and I'll give you guys like a minute or two to finish up your questions, unless you already have them all filled out. But
And we'll ask more questions as we go along, but we just wanted to write some down so that way he can read them and he can get it on the recording.
Yeah.
And that way, because if you're reading it out loud, the mics might not pick it up.
I'll give you one. What was that?
Okay, yeah.
Just tell him he needs some better directions.
That's okay.
Not a sign or anything.
You're a teacher, you should.
Yes, right.
Thank you. How you doing? I'm out. Brian. Hey, Brian. Good to meet you.
Just if you want to. Al, if you could just go ahead and tell me about your day real quick. We'll do one test here while everyone watches.
Fantastic.
So how was the traffic coming in here?
Traffic coming down was great until right before I got to Austin.
Okay.
That's where all the traffic came
Even in Dallas?
in. Dallas was awesome. I was
Okay.
zipped right through, not even a hiccup.
Okay. Yeah, because I imagine, I've always had the impression that I-35 is the worst anyway. I often commute from San Antonio to Austin, but it's been a while since I've been in Dallas.
Well,
so.
the difference is you got to time it right. So when you get out of Dallas, there's a window of about 3 hours you can get through there easy. Anything before or after that, forget about it.
Okay. Boom. Perfect soundbite. Appreciate it.
Got it. Audio level good.
Audio level's good. And if you guys don't know already, we are actually recording this for a podcast. It's the LEG Job Seekers podcast. So if you look it up on iTunes, Spotify, it's that big yellow logo with it penciled at the very top. So Al's actually been a guest before. He's been on 2 of our podcast episodes. So we're really excited for this one. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
Okay.
All right, guys, so we will go ahead and get started. So this is Ask Me Anything, and we have Al Robinette coming in from all the way from Dallas just to give this presentation, so I really appreciate it coming here. What I wanted to say about this is it takes a lot of dedication to come here during Thanksgiving for your job search, and so kudos to you. It's definitely not easy. We have a really small group today, and so what I would say is really take advantage of that. It's just going to be us 5 or people trickle in. So feel free to really take advantage of this time and ask Al any questions that you've ever had or currently may have in regards to your job search. So I'm really excited about that. What we are going to do first is just get a read around the room and hear from you guys what's your current situation and where are you looking to apply. And that's going to give us a little bit more to feed off on during this panel session. So I will kind of open it up real quick and just talk about me and what my background is. So I studied hotel administration at the Cornell Hotel Administration School. I'm not in hotels clearly right now, you can tell. I'm in a hotel, but this isn't kind of where my passion lies. So I had to make a career transition myself, and I had to end up leaving my job as a restaurant manager, which was actually very tough to do at the time because I felt like it was part of my daily life. It was something that I woke up and spent 12 hours doing, and felt like I was making good money, but it's not really where my passion was, where my heart lied. My heart lies in helping you guys, job seekers, with your job search, to help you write better resumes, better cover letters, and LinkedIn profiles. So about 4 years ago, I started Let's Eat Grandma, which is a resume writing service, and we've helped. So if you take the comma out of Let's Eat Grandma, you're saying you want to eat your grandmother versus including it. So we decided to not have a boring name. It ended up actually working in our favor. So it wasn't an easy transition for the first few years. In fact, we can definitely say that we struggled through it, but it definitely ended up being worth it. We've had a very fruitful, awesome relationship with a bunch of different clients from all over the nation. And that's my story. That's how I kind of ended up here in Austin, here at Capital Factory. And I actually met Al through the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches, which we were part of the same group. So the power of networking definitely has taken us far. So I talk to you guys about this. Yeah. So Al, we'll bounce right on over to you, and then we'll work our way around the room, and then we'll get started with the recording. So,
well, I think I met everybody as you come in. My name's Al Robinette. I'm a certified professional career coach. Also certified in a whole bunch of initials after my name in behavioral sciences and industrial organizational psychology. So I really spent a lot of years doing work that I could do because I made the money like we were talking about earlier. I was very good at it, but it wasn't really my passion. And then I had a really interesting life event where I was exposed to behavioral science. And I was so impressed on how much somebody could learn about me from an assessment and a quick 10, 15-minute conversation. This person was able to tell me things about me that I'm like, how did you know that? That's impossible. You know, I didn't tell you that, but they knew that. So it really fired up my passion because working in the risk management, loss prevention, security industry, I've had to fix so many broken things in my life, broken districts, broken stores, broken regions, and get them back up running profitable and running it the right way. At the end of the day, it always came down to people. Did we hire the right people? Did we know how to hire the right people? Did we know how to train, develop the right people? And it was always about people and how to get them there. And I think a combination of that plus going through workforce reductions. I worked for 2 companies where I was workforce reduced. Had nothing to do with my performance. The company downsized, they eliminated the position. And especially when that comes unexpected, that's a punch to the gut. So going through those things really made me step back to say, well, there's a better way of doing this. Why not find work that's your passion that feeds your soul? Why not find work that you get out of bed in the morning and you enjoy doing? And you can do that. So I work on both sides of the fence. I work with individuals in career coaching, but I also work with organizations to help them figure out how to hire better and how to hire the right person. So by working on both sides of that, I'm able to help both the clients and I'm able to help the employers both. And a lot of behavioral science tools I use are just absolutely incredible to really help you find the 12 driving forces we were talking about earlier that everybody has. There's 4 that make up your primary. And anything you do in life is based, those 4, or one of those 4 is pushing it. So whether it's anything in your personal life, your professional life, any of that, it's one of those 4 that you're triggered. And when you can learn what your 4 are, and you can align that to the work you do and the organization you work for, life is great. You get up excited to go to work. You get up early in the morning because you're rested. You're not dreading the day. You're not going through those bad, oh my God, I don't want to get up because I know I've got to go to work feelings that people get into.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of my passion really came from that. So, but I've worked in everything from boots on the ground, hourly positions, through corporate positions. I was running my retail store when I was 18 that did $1 million a year. So I hit the ground running very quickly in my career. So I've bounced around. So, but it's been my passion. I love helping people find that work that they love.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's start to go around the room. We'll start with you, Jackie.
Just like where we're
So,
coming from.
Yeah, what do you do now? Kind of where are you within your career? And I know you're happy with where you are right now, but if you could talk about kind of your trajectory, that'd be great too.
So I graduated last year in 2017 with a psychology degree and biology also. And I entered into teaching, which was never a career path that I thought I would ever do. So that's where I'm at now. I do special ed, elementary, absolutely love it. But I don't see myself doing it forever, and that was never the intention. So I'm just kind of trying to feel out what exactly I do want to do.
Okay. Well, a psychology degree, you can't go wrong. It's a universal degree that applies to everything in life, so good job on that. Awesome.
My name is Sean. I have a background in mechanical engineering, but I've spent most of my career in oil and gas. I had a 13-year career, including 6 years in Scotland and 2 years in Singapore. So I've done a lot of global business development, sales, technical sales, management. So I've done quite a lot. And then at the end of May of this year, I found myself basically the price pressures in oil and gas catching up with me, and mergers and reorganizations. So I've been laid off. So I'm trying to structure a career change. I'd actually like to get into leveraging some of that transferable skill into solar or PV space. So I'm trying to learn about the best ways to grow my networks into a different area and find a new job.
It's a good transition. I'm sure there's some common language between the two, absolutely. Common knowledge. Both markets have got their own uniqueness, but I can definitely see the crossover.
Yep.
Cool.
How do I follow up with that? Wow. Nowhere near that level, but my name is Brian Jackson. I work for the Lower Colorado River Authority in the Parks Department. I'm kind of their account manager for, it's not a huge setup, it's a $3 million revenue accounting share with 20 parks that help kind of manage that whole account system.
What did you say your role was again?
I'm like the account manager for all that, their whole reservation system, a bunch of 30 contractors or so for all that. All the business rules that go through it, setting up new plans for new amenities, new concessionaires and stuff like that. So I kind of run that role. I'm about a year and a half into it, and I am at the point where it's like, do I stick this out to build that resume, or do I look to try to transfer it to something else that would kind of grow me a little bit more? So
Cool.
that's kind of where I'm at.
That's awesome.
Kudos for you for pausing and having that thought already. And trying to make that conscious decision on what to do so that you're making the choice and not having it made for you.
Yeah.
So good job on that.
Hello, my name is David. I'm actually a recent Capital Factory member. I'm just here to learn and listen. I have been recruited by a few companies as far as like Google, Cigna. I was in healthcare management, hoping to transition into tech. Just here to learn.
Okay.
Cool. When did you start at Capital Factory?
Actually, I was here about 6 months ago, and it was through I was getting sponsorship through St. Edwards.
Uh-huh.
I just recently.
Is it through their accelerator program or?
No, it was more through like a connection through like Dr. Altunian.
Okay.
I was doing an MBA program, and so just kind of getting sponsorship. I performed really well during the program, and ended up here. Worked for 6 months with a company. It was a medical startup, and then that's how I got through here, and then decided to get my own co-working space.
Cool. It's a lot of work here. It's a great space. So.
Awesome, great to hear, thanks.
Yeah, we're just going over like opportunity and trajectory. So.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. My name is Neil. I just attended a workshop yesterday on digital marketing. A recent UT grad. Came to Austin to study politics and thought I wanted to go to law school. Austin's a great city for that, but it's also a great city for tech and entrepreneurship. It's kind of the route I'm going now. Just trying to learn as much as possible, and it's really fun.
Yeah, everything you just said made my head immediately start going, okay, we need to do this.
Right.
I immediately went into planning mode for you.
Yeah, I'm taking a couple online classes, and I attended a workshop yesterday. I'm attending another one tomorrow. It's exciting, to be honest.
Awesome, congratulations.
So I'm Rebecca. I am not in any realm. I have a master's in counseling, and I kind of steered away from that and went into a different realm. I'm working at a private school and kind of doing like the organization and operations parts of it. It's not really like my calling. I don't feel like I'm doing anything fulfilling, and so I'm trying to get back into that counseling realm of helping other people. So I just went out on a limb to come out here and just learn.
Let's start. Well, I'll tell you, it's, I wish you'd been here at the beginning because we had a lot of conversation about some of that earlier. But I think, it's very common for people to end up in careers that don't align to their academics because they get a job that is paying the bills, or they get a job that's close to home or doesn't have travel or whatever. There's something that drew them to it initially, and then they kind of stick with it. Then a certain level of fear does start to step in is, should I break away from this? Is it smart to do that? What's going to be the negatives? And we start kind of getting stuck. And then that's when all that anxiety and emotional labor and all that stuff starts kicking in. So as a counselor, I'm sure you're fully aware of all that stuff. But counseling is a really wide, rich field. So, with you, I think there's definitely an opportunity to find the right niche of counseling that fits you. And that way it's something that's rewarded. And we were talking earlier about the 12 driving forces, is figuring out what your top primary four would be and how does that align to which type of counseling. And when you can do that, it's so much easier to look for the right work. So awesome. I thought you thought process.
I do.
She's in full gear mode.
Yeah.
Thank you. You brought up the question.
Yeah, guys, if you do have questions or that you'd like to ask, just write down your question, raise it up so Matt can grab it. He'll deliver it to me, and I'll ask it for our audience and for you guys. So
I'm Jennifer. My situation is very similar to Sean's over here. I was in oil and gas and logistics for 10 years, and I also got laid off. I was with GE for a long time, and they just decided to get rid of everybody and all of their businesses. So I had a pretty extensive network of people in logistics and in oil and gas, but I really didn't want to do any more of that. So there were certain aspects of my job that I really did like, though. I had a lot of experience. I started ending up teaching and training people, and I'm moving into sales. I tracked a lot of sales jobs in logistics and teaching other people how to do logistics or how companies can do their logistics better. So I wanted to move more into that realm, but I was attracting more just like sales stuff, and it wasn't really how I wanted to go. Now I'm to the point where I wanted to completely revamp my network of people that I knew. As we started to talk about that, about how important are they really if you don't want to do anything in that industry anymore. Because every job that I've ever gotten was by knowing people. So I just moved here, actually. I was in Houston my whole life, and I hated it always. So I thought, I don't want a job here. I wanted to get into the tech industry. I wanted to do something in training and development or in sales and training. But how do you do that when you're not in technology? So I just literally sold my house and everything I had and came here and thought, I'm just going to start a new life. And I am going to, I'm living off of the money right now, but it's going to run out and I would like to have some still left over. So, you know, I would like to get an income soon. But that would actually brought up one of the questions I started to write down on then. Should you just take a job just to pay the bills, even though it's not the job that you really want, and continue to add jobs that I don't want on my resume? Because I keep attracting more of the stuff that I don't want. So when you have a lot of experience, you know, how do you do a job transition when you want to do something completely different in a different city, you know, with totally different people in a different industry? So that's why I'm here, because I feel like I've been spinning my wheels, just sending my resume out and thinking maybe it's not the right resume, maybe, you know. So I thought the best way to start is to start talking to people and getting to know people and tell them what you want. And so that's why I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you, all of you guys, for sharing. I know we have like transitioners in here. We have people who want to focus the resume, so rest assured we're going to cover all of that. And now as a moderator, I know the types of questions I should be focusing our time on. So I do appreciate all of your intros. And we have started to hit the record button. And I know you touched upon it just a little bit, Al, but if you could just briefly talk about why you are in career coaching and who you typically serve. And that'll open it up.
Yeah, I've worked with individuals in so many different industries. Everything from retail to corporate executive finance positions to IT positions to people working in construction, painters. I've worked with so many different types of people out there. So there's not an industry, because I don't have to be the expert in your industry. That's not what my role is. My role is to help facilitate and help you come up with those decisions, because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to make the decision about your career and what's the best thing for you. I'm going to help you figure out what the options are, what are things that maybe you haven't thought of, and what are resources that maybe you haven't thought of, and help keep you motivated, and also be an accountability partner. Because one of the things when it comes to career coaching, you know, you can hire a career coach, but if you don't do the work, what's the point? So there's got to be a certain level of accountability that you're doing whatever the work is we're doing, whether it's an assignment, whether it's research, whether it's a course you're taking or something. You got to have somebody that's going to hold you accountable. You know, and if you don't have a career coach, then who do you have in your personal life that can be that person for you? Because that's a big piece of any kind of success when you're focusing on something like this, because you're going to get days that you're going to feel great and you're going to see success in the steps you're taking, and then you're going to have days you're going to feel horrible and you feel like the world's going to go in. So that person is as much an accountability partner as I call them your CMO, your Chief Motivational Officer. It's their job to help also keep you motivated and keep you going, because you don't want to go through a career transition or a job search alone. You want to have that person you can talk to, you can vent to, that understands what you're going through, and they're going to be that support person for you to some degree. And it's amazing when you can take a partner and share that load, how much less stressful a transition or a job search can be. So again, that would be somebody for you to think about on your own. But it's really about helping you navigate those waters, and how do we get you into that position of that company you want to work for, and how do you know what that is? Because several of you kind of mentioned, I'm doing something, but it's not what I want to do.
Yeah. So
how do we figure that out? And that's where we work together to do that. You know, one of the things I got my notepad out and I had to write this down with what you were just saying, Jennifer. Because when you were talking about the logistics experience you got, and you talked about the training aspect of it. So do you enjoy doing the training?
It's the training I like.
Okay.
And I know that if I could get a job in logistics doing more training, I would probably be okay with that.
Would you be okay, or would you love it? Because if you're going to make the transition.
It depends, because I mean, what I like, it's very similar to what you were saying earlier. What you basically do, you said that you train people that are looking for jobs, and you also train companies that are hiring. Basically what you're doing is you're taking your two relationships you built, and you're connecting people who need something, and putting that together. And that's what I like to do. I love to do that part.
Okay.
When I build networks, I'm like, get to know somebody. Oh, I know somebody who's hiring, or somebody, not even just hiring, but oh, I know somebody who's doing this and that. I want to do connections. I don't know if I necessarily, but part that I like about training is teaching people, and I like presenting. I have no problem getting up in front of people and talking.
So the one nugget that I'll give you out of today to take away that'll make the difference based on what we talked about. was about your resume and working on your transitional skills and rephrasing things we were talking about toward training and development, right? So that's where it's taking the experiences you have with the resume you've got and rewriting that to talk about the people that you've developed, the departments that you've trained, what are the successes that they've had. So we have to start rewriting that resume to focus on those successes, because you've certainly had them, we just got to find them and figure out how to phrase them. But then from a skill set, you need to look up a website called ATD. So anybody who wants to be a facilitator or a trainer, that is the gold standard in certifications. You get an ATD facilitation certification on your resume, you just opened up a whole ton of doors. Because now that's saying I'm not somebody who's playing at being a trainer, I'm a certified trainer. So
And-
now, it can be any industry, it doesn't matter.
Really? Okay.
You are a certified facilitator or a certified trainer, and with your background in logistics, and you can now advertise yourself as, I'm a certified trainer in logistics.
So you asked if I would be okay with doing logistics, and now I'm thinking, I've been thinking about it for a minute. One of the reasons I came here was because of the technology industry. I just think it's the future, and that's something I don't want to continue being in an industry. Oil and gas was dying. I didn't want to. Tech's not going to die anytime soon. So I don't know. I would really like to move into that.
Yep,
but
and that's definitely an option, and you can look at that. The other thing I'd say is don't think about oil and gas as logistics, because a lot of the logistics skills that you have apply across other industries. So you could still leave oil and gas and go into any number of distribution or facilitation, or you could even go into customs. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you could transfer some of those skill sets into other industries. So it's something to think about, because it's not a decision you're going to make overnight. So you're going to have to do some homework, research a little bit. What are some of these positions like out there? One of the best websites I recommend for everybody is called ONET, O-N-E-T.
That's what I recommend too.
It's one of the best websites out there for free to go on and search for jobs, and they will give you an amazing report on this is the career I'm looking at. Is that our jobs climbing in that industry? What's the average median salaries? You'll get some really great data on there, and it's completely free. So I would definitely do some research around other industries that you could potentially go into logistics for. The other thing I would recommend, and this applies to anybody that's transitioning, is on LinkedIn, if there is an industry you're interested in, reach out to people in that industry and tap them for their knowledge, not for a job. To say, look, I'm looking to make a career transition, I'm interested in your field. I see you've been in that field for X amount of time, you've worked for X number of companies. I'd love to get 15 minutes of your time if you have, to see if you have any advice for somebody. You're complimenting the person while you're getting knowledge from them. Because again, it's a little bit of feeding the egos, because people love to be seen as an expert. We want to be valued for what we know and what we bring to the table. It's human nature. So when you're doing that from a positive, that hey, I want to talk to you, I want to pick your brain, any advice you would have. You've been doing this for 10 years. What would you tell yourself when you first started? You know, if you could go back and tell yourself what you learned today, what would you tell your early self? You know, just pick that brain for a little bit of information, and you'll be amazed how many people are willing to talk to you when you package it that way.
Oh, they love it when they ask.
Yeah, because you're not asking for something they can't do. And
Can I have a job?
yeah,
No.
That kind of thing.
no, I don't know you, I'm not vouching for you.
Yeah, can you vouch for me? That was the other one you mentioned.
Yeah, your company has a referral program. Would you refer me? So I know you'll get a referral bonus if you refer me. I had a client actually tell somebody that one day. I shook my head. But anyway, you'll be amazed where some of those conversations will lead you, and you may end up with a nugget that is just a game changer. You just don't know until you start doing it. And worst case scenario, you make a connection with somebody. They may be able to pass you on to somebody else down the road. It might not even be something that benefits you today. They may remember that conversation with you 9 months from now, and they have some opening, or they may have a friend they know, somebody that's looking, and they say, oh, I remember such and such, she reached out to me. So you never know where that's going to circle back to you down the road, but it's about building. I think I used this analogy in the LinkedIn podcast we did. Think of that human connection and growing your network like a garden. Because the first thing you got to do is you got to till the soil. That's get your profile set up, right? Then you got to plant the seeds. That's reaching out, making those initial connections. Then you got to water it, nurture it. So that's following up, reaching out. Hey, how you doing? How's your week going? Responding on posts, right? So if you do all those things, what happens to your garden? It starts growing and it produces fruit eventually. And that's the exact same thing with real live human connection network. But if you don't do that, and you don't follow up on it, and you don't reach out, and you don't make those connections, it dies.
Yeah.
And it's not going to produce for you.
Now, I'll cut in right there, because I think a big pain point a lot of people have is they're applying to these applicant tracking systems, and they're not getting responses. It's just like apply, 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 and then nothing. So somebody even asked the question, they talk about cold contacting people, talk about networking, but what do you think is the most effective way to actually network and start cold contacting people? Is it through LinkedIn, or are there other ways to do it?
LinkedIn is probably the most common, most popular everybody's used to because it's a professional site and it's respected. But I would say that's just one of the tools out there. I'd say if you are certified in anything or a member of anything, so whether it's a member of your alumni chapter for your school, whether you have a certification in something in your local chapter, like CFE, Certified Fraud Examiners, or PHRM, Professional HR Manager certifications, or any of these different things that people have, almost all of them have local meetup groups. Almost all of them have some kind of local membership chapter. Maybe it's a sorority chapter, or maybe it's a International Association of Psychology. It could be anything. But if you've got any of those you're a part of, look them up, find out where the local chapters are, and go to their meetings, go to their meetups. That is one of the best in-person you can ever do, because they are getting to know you face to face. Now they are building a connection with you. And as you get to know them over different meetings you go to, they get to know your background, and they can start to actually be someone that could vouch for you because they've gotten to know you. Those are organic ones that do take time, but those could be some of the most fruitful ones, because not only are you potentially gaining access for employment, you're tapping into the knowledge and diversity of thought that all of those individuals have who are in the industry that you're focusing on. And again, I can't even put a price.
Advice. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I can't put a price on the nuggets of that knowledge that you'll get from those individuals usually. And I've never been to one of those groups where people weren't willing to help. They weren't willing to share the knowledge and help you succeed.
I was going to say, you brought up Meetup, and I did, like 2 weeks ago, I noticed on LinkedIn, and I did go to it, LinkedIn has a Meetup once a month, and I went to the one a couple weeks ago. That one was in the domain, and where if you're a job seeker, you wear a white badge and you put what it is that you're looking for in your name, and then the people who are hiring wear the blue ones, and then they put what companies they work at, so that way you're mingling and it's very easy. And there's a lot of people who go, so that was a really good meetup.
Absolutely, great.
So we have a guest talking about the efficacy, how powerful meetup can be in actually connecting with people in person and live. So
absolutely, and I think LinkedIn really took a change this year in 2018. Their strategy of how they're using their resources, because not only are they doing the employee networking job seeking one, they have the local LinkedIn meetups they're doing now, which is just if you're part of LinkedIn, they're doing a local event. So anybody that's on LinkedIn, you get together and you're just networking. It's all you're doing. You're just getting together, having a good time. They'll do it at some kind of different place. Up in Dallas, there's a entrepreneurs development center that opened up a couple of years ago. They host a lot of different LinkedIn meetups. So it's just if you're on LinkedIn, let's all get together and just talk and have a good time. And there's no real agenda. It's just about getting together and networking. So they've really taken a strong approach to trying to help people connect this past year more than ever. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, definitely I would look at that. But again, to your point, you're going to take some time to think about what's going to be that right fit. So is it logistics in another industry? Is it to focus on the IT world? On the IT world, what kind of job in IT would attract you? What is it that you're interested in? What training and certifications are you going to need to get to be able to get into that industry? So those are all things you're going to need to research to figure out, is that the right path? And if it is, how long is it going to take you to get there? Because that's all part of that reality piece to say, okay, I got X amount of months and stashed away. Can I get this done in that time frame?
Yeah. I kind of want to push this into the direction of career changers, because I know we have several in the room. There's several questions actually about career transition, so I want to make sure we have enough time to cover that. So we touched upon it a little bit, but when you are strategizing, or I can even talk about when you're writing your resume, how do you really attract the right jobs and really deflect from your past experience? Because I'll talk about some clients I've had in the past. They've had sales positions maybe back in the early 2000s, but that's not something that they want now. They would rather have something that's more, customer success or maybe product development. But how do you actually transition towards that, not having all these recruiters going back at you saying, hey, do you want the sales job, that kind of thing?
It's a great call out, and I think a couple different things with transitioning into a new industry. We talked about this a couple times. We talked actually in the early, before we got started recording, was it's trying to make sure how to say this the right way. So when you're making that transition into another industry, it's about understanding what those skill sets and things are and how your transferable skill sets fit, but how do you rephrase it, package it?
Yeah.
So for example, I've got a stay-at-home mom. She's been home for 15 years, and now she wants to transition and she has to get work. And she feels like she has no experience to put on a resume. And so with her, I took it a whole different approach, because this was before I started working with Let's Eat Grandma. But with that resume job, we actually made it a little bit more fun, because we created jobs of being a mom, being a housekeeper for the family, and we took some fun with it, because we talked about negotiating, at the PTA, negotiating with the kids, and different things that a parent goes through at home raising kids. So we took those skill sets and we rephrased it in a way that made it a fun resume. And she actually got employment. They had a kick out of the resume, because they could see how all the things she did to raise a family. She could deal with stress, she could multitask. We could start naming off all these competencies that she was skilled at. They just weren't in a traditional W-2 job.
Raising a teenager, it is not easy.
It's not.
I start putting that on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a teenager.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, that's the first step, is you've got to say, what does the job need that I'm going to, and what do I have, and how do they cross over is the first step. Second step is you got to look to see, what does the job require? Because there's the requirement and there's the like-to-haves. So whatever the job requires, what are you missing and how can you get it? So whether it's experience, training, certifications, education, whatever, what is that? And keep in mind, experience doesn't have to be paid. One of my best client success stories I have was a gentleman that got an IT degree. He had a bachelor's in IT programming, and he's never had a job in the industry. And the only job he could ever get was, he did one job working on a trash truck, and he had another job where he was answering phones. And he could not get a job in IT to save his life, because everybody said you don't have any experience. So when I started working with him, within 90 days, I had him doing volunteer work at 3 different local charity organizations, setting up their Wi-Fi, helping them with programming stuff, helping them set up emails. So over that next 6 months, he gained 6 months worth of experience that we were able to put on a resume.
Yeah.
And once we did that and rewrote his resume to include that, it didn't take him long, and he was able to get his first IT job. So keep in mind, it doesn't have to be paid experience to count. So anything you volunteer on, it counts.
Once you rewrite your resume for transferable skills, do you have any good ways to test that theory, right? Obviously, you're sending that, you want to do this before you send it to jobs. Any recommendations for that?
Absolutely.
So we had a guest who asked about if they do have those transferable skills, is there a way to test that sort of out in the field? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, several ways. One, going back to the connections you've made. If you've made connections in that industry, it's no harm in saying, hey, I'm going to be applying to some positions, and I know you've been in the industry for 10 years. Would you mind take a look at this and give me your thoughts? Again, you're not asking for a job. You're not asking for them to pass it along. You're asking for their professional opinion. What do you think of this, of the resume? And they'll quickly give you probably a very direct answer of, yeah, this is good, no, this is bad, take this out, this is old terminology, or hey, this part of what it is isn't going forward, so don't put that on there. So you'll get some real world feedback for that. And that's the first one. The second would be, there's not any harm in connecting with recruiters. It's amazing how many recruiters I've met who are willing to look at a resume for somebody transitioning and give you feedback. So let's say you're picking that solar industry that you're looking at, and there's recruiters out there that specialize in energy recruitment. So whether it's gas, oil, solar, whatever, that's what they specialize in. So if you're able to find one of those recruiters through whatever resource, Google, LinkedIn, whatever, and reach out to them to say, look, I'm looking to transition into the industry, and you may even want to offer to say, I'd love to be able to hire you for an hour consult. Maybe you pay them a few bucks to give you some feedback firsthand. Try the free route first. Say, hey, would you be willing to take a look at this and give me your feedback? But if they say, and I'm really busy, I'm swamped, so look, I'd be more than happy to pay you for an hour consultation. If you ever let me know what that would cost. And again, you may get them then because they're like, oh wow, this person's serious. They're not just because recruiters get a lot of people window shopping that aren't serious. So sometimes that conversation, offering to hire them for an hour of consulting, will get their attention. And they may not even charge you afterwards. They just know that you're serious and they're willing to help. So that would be another way you could kind of test it before you start launching it. So that's a great question. The other thing I would say that goes along with that is this is a mistake a lot of people make. If you update your resume and you're transitioning, pull your old one off the internet. Go on to Monster, Job, Indeed, wherever else you posted your old one, pull it off. Because the comment, Jennifer, I think you were making earlier, is you keep getting calls about the industry you don't want to be in.
Yes.
It may not be your new resume that they're seeing. They may be seeing an old one.
I do see them, yeah, sometimes I think they're getting it.
Yep, so go out and make sure you pull all those off. If you want, one of the things that's helpful in job search and transition, if you've got everybody's email address and they're open to it, I've got a really cool form I'll send you that you write down the job board, your password, username. It's a little simple form, so you can keep track of everywhere you posted your resume. So then if you ever need to go back and pull it off because you haven't updated, you know everywhere you need to go. Because you don't want to confuse people to say, well, I see one resume that says this, I see another that says this, I don't know what you're trying to be. So you want to keep that a very clean process for you.
Yeah, I'll cut in there because you said a really cool thing about like posting something that you may want to erase. I have the same question but for LinkedIn. So for instance, I used to be a restaurant manager. I have a lot of hospitality in my background. So LinkedIn's actually pushing me jobs like, do you want this restaurant manager job? I'm like, no, I don't. Do you want this job as a bar manager? I'm like, no, I really don't. So in that same regard, does LinkedIn work the same way? Is there a way that I can actually downplay some of that experience?
I don't know if I downplay it. What I would say is I would transition your comments. The more you comment or connect with people in the industry you're focusing on, that will eventually shift.
Okay.
And you'll see more of that for what you're targeting. So, but if you got 100 connections and 90 of them are in one industry, then that's where you're going to feel the bulk of it. So, but as to your point earlier, if you remove some of the connections that aren't people that you know, they don't know you, they're just connections for the sake of having it, you can pull those off for sure. But then start adding those new ones that are the targeted industry, and that auto filter for LinkedIn will start to pick up on that, and it'll start to slide in. But what I would go even further with the job search though is not relying just on LinkedIn. For example, whether you go into Monster or Career Builder or Indeed or any of them, set up your job search filters so that it's sending jobs to you and you can then manually apply. Because you can say, I want a job in this industry, this is the position I'm looking for. So anytime those jobs post, it'll send you an email to say, hey, here's the jobs for this week that are posted that match your search. And then that's allowing you to proactively go after it.
Right.
And I will tell you, those are so important because especially if it's a job that you want or it's a high profile job, if you have that set up, you could apply within minutes sometimes or an hour of it being going live because you'll get that alert. But if you are like a lot of others who just a couple days a week do some searches to see what's out there, they've already gotten 30, 40 applicants coming in and you're behind the 8 ball. So the quicker you get that in there and the quicker you get in front of somebody, the better. So definitely set those alerts up to get those coming to you too.
Fantastic. We had somebody who asked, how much should I change my social media? Should my LinkedIn be the same as my resume?
The LinkedIn should align fairly close to your resume because you don't want to have 2 different versions. Because when you come in to interview with me, I'm going to see your resume and I've seen your LinkedIn and they don't match. I'm going to have trust issues right on the bat. So definitely want to as closely aligned as you can, but LinkedIn gives you the freedom to expand. So it's okay to expand a little bit more. So especially in that summary section at the top, it's about selling you. I need to know in the first 30 seconds who you are and why do I want to get to know you better. Everything after that first third of the resume or after that first initial summary statement on LinkedIn almost doesn't matter. It's important to be accurate, but that's not the meat and potatoes.
Any personal information in there?
It depends on the industry. There's a lot of debate about it. I tend to make, if you're somebody who wants to be seen as approachable and you're working in an industry where that's okay, be approachable. To say, hey, this is who I am, and I love fishing, or I love long walks on the beach, or you can make it a little fun and make it approachable. But if you're focused on an industry that is very strict, very professional, they don't appreciate a sense of humor, then I wouldn't do that. Because that's telling. Also, I would ask you, why are you going into that industry if that's not who you are? But that's a whole other question. But I think make it industry specific. You wouldn't want a comedian have a very flat LinkedIn profile, right? You'd expect to see some comedy in their profile.
I think sales is another example of that too. You need that human aspect, especially when you're connecting with people on the
Yeah.
phone. So I've heard that a lot from sales managers. So
Yeah, and just like if there was somebody that was a counselor for suicide people that are going through that, I don't know if I want to see humor in theirs necessarily. I don't expect to see all negatives, but somebody that are cracking jokes, I don't know how seriously I would take them as professionals. So I think it's industry specific.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay to do it if it's appropriate, because people are going to get to know you. I see a photo of you, which please make sure you do real photos. Take the time to do a headshot. So many people do the iPhone photos and I'm in the car. I cringe every time I see those. If you're a professional, spend $100, $200, whatever, go get a professional headshot and make it look good. It's so important because so many people will go through LinkedIn and they're looking for people to hire. As soon as they see that photo, they don't even read your profile. If it's a bad photo, it's out of focus, if you don't care enough about yourself to present yourself professionally, what makes me think you're going to care about my company? So, but it doesn't have to be fancy, but just make it clean, make it professional, make it show that you've made an effort, right? And it doesn't even have to be expensive. I mean, there's a lot of these little photo studios in the malls and things, you can probably go get a decent one for $40, $50. But just do something nice. I've seen people doing in their backyards with like a fence in the background, it's like cropped the right way, still look great.
Yeah.
So just make sure it's clean and it looks good. The ones I'm in the car driving, my sunglasses on, I'm sitting back like this, that doesn't work. That's a Facebook photo. That's not for LinkedIn. And it will come back and bite you. People are very judgmental whether they should be or not. That first impression is that photo. And if you don't have a photo on LinkedIn, that's sending the message you're not serious about your career. So if somebody's looking for you on LinkedIn will think that you're not engaged. So make sure you've got one.
Are they really going to look at your Facebook and your Instagram and all
Yep.
of that stuff?
So we have a guest who asked, are recruiters actually going to look at your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, whatever it is?
So I'm going to give you two answers. The first answer is the official legal hiring answer from almost every state in the country. No, they're not allowed to look at that and base their hiring decision on anything they find in social media. The reality and the actual answer is abso-friggin-lutely. They're going to look at they're going to type your name into Google and look for everything you've ever posted because it's public record. So they're going to look for Facebook, and if you haven't locked your Facebook, they're going to look at every post and photo that's in your Facebook profile. So anything you've done, anything that's out there, social world, they're going to find it. And they're going to make a hiring decision based on it. They're not supposed to, but I can tell you right now, I've talked to so many HR hiring people, they absolutely do it. Because here's the fear factor. If you have behavior that is high risk, what's the risk to my organization if you do that behavior working here? Could it end up in the media? Could it go viral? Could it be connected to my business and hurt my business? That's the logic of why they do it. They really don't care what you do in your off time. They're more doing risk assessment. Are you a risk to my business? So just kind of know that that is out there. So if you have posted something when you were in college and you did something crazy and you're standing on your head drinking from a keg, you might want to go out and delete that.
Such imagery.
Try to paint the visual. But I find most professionals don't really have a lot to worry about out there. But every once in a while you will find some individuals that are just leaving college and they're just getting into their career. Maybe have some stuff where they got a little crazy and fun and did some crazy stuff. So just Google your name and see what's on like the first 3 pages.
On social media.
Yep.
Problem now.
It is for a lot of people.
That can be a deal breaker.
Yep, and there's companies out there that are openly, like Google was just in the news recently, that they were talking about if your politics were a certain way, that it's a huge blowout thing. That if your politics were a certain way that you weren't going to work there, and there was some manager there that posted an internal memo and said that people was going to find a way to get rid of you if you like Trump or something. I mean, it can get ugly in some companies with politics. So you have freedom of speech and say what you want, but that's where we talked about earlier though. It's about finding the right job for the right person, right? So if we can find the right industry, that's the first step. Then the next step is aligning you to the right organization that has the same values and beliefs and missions that you do. And then that all stuff doesn't even become relevant.
There's a question over there.
Yeah, so what if the individual doesn't have social media, such as myself? I don't have social media. The only form of social media I have is LinkedIn. So I guess in many ways I've come to find that there's certain employers that kind of actually like deterred from that. They think that I have something to hide, but quite frankly, it's just that I just don't want to participate. So what about that?
So we have a guest who's asking about social media. What if you don't have a Facebook page or anything like that? Is it going to deter from your job search? Is how will it impact my job search?
I think what that usually surfaces if somebody doesn't have it, the first thing you mentioned was, what are you trying to hide, usually comes up.
Yeah.
But the second question I think most employers are going to ask themselves, and hopefully you can speak to this in the interview process or in conversation, phone screening, is are you someone that's antisocial? Are you going to not connect with my team? Are you not going to be a team player? Are you going to try to be a loner? Is that why you're not socially connected with people? So I think that thought is part of what goes through there as well. So what I would probably focus on is anybody that you're potentially going to work with, addressing it right up front. Don't let them bring it up. You address it. So just so you know, I don't do a lot of social media, Instagrams or Twitters or things like that. I don't focus on that. I tend to, and maybe it's because you focus on real human connection, like talking to people, and just explain that. And I think when you can explain that, it's fine. It's not a big deal. But it's when you don't talk about it, you don't bring it up, and then they find it, it's all the worst case scenario in people's mind they go to. So it's best just to be upfront. Say, hey, look, I know it's unusual. A lot of IT people have social media and things. I don't, because I like to have real world connections with people.
Would you suggest that he just opens an account and lets
Nope.
him profile pictures?
Because that's not who he is.
Just
That's
say
being
nothing,
fake.
so that way that doesn't even happen.
Yep, don't even bring it up. I mean, if you don't want to do it, that's not who you are, don't do it, that's being fake. Because he'll start it, like most people, he would start it, make a few posts, and then he won't post anything for a year. And then it's like, what was the point? So, and again, it's making you do something you don't want to do that's not true to who you are, and we want you to be able to be who you are. So just speak to it in the initial recruiting conversation. That's what I'd say.
Wow, awesome. So we'll go back to something that we talked about in making career transitions. I'll probably rework this towards the middle. Somebody asks, coming specifically from oil and gas, I'm being discounted in my sales experience for having a lack of cold calling experience. How can I best overcome this hurdle? So in their specific instance, this job posting is calling for one particular thing, and they're getting written off. And I'll just kind of broaden that right now. Like, what if it's like a degree, for instance, that job posting is looking for, and you don't have that? What would you recommend out?
Usually there's a reason for that. Because if that's a key element that job requires, and you don't have it, it's telling you it's not a right fit. If it's that big of a deal that they're discounting a potential applicant. And what happens, and you can tell me if this is true for you or not, but what tends to happen is we get a little bit out of shape when we don't get a job that we know we can do because of that one reason, or that one skill set, or that one certification. To say, I can do that, I know I can do the job, or I've done it before, or whatever. We tend to take it personal, and it's not about you can't do the job, it's not about you couldn't adapt to do the job, it's not that you couldn't learn to do the job, it's that we don't want you to have to do that. We want somebody that's already there, that needs to be boots on the ground, running, that the ramp up time for that position is likely very short. So we don't have time to wait for somebody to adapt or develop or grow right now for that position. Doesn't mean there might be one down the road that we would have that time frame, but as of right now, we need somebody that's a veteran of that. Now, the other option would be is that there's a specific skill set or something that's needed that you're missing. How can you go get that? And can you speak to that in your cover letter? To say, I'm applying for this sales position, and I have experience in the past of doing sales, being very successful. Cold calling was one of my areas of opportunity, so I've been working on that over the last 2, 3, 6 weeks, whatever, and developing my skill sets, working with others that are experts in the industry. That, like, you can put that into your cover letter to say you're calling it out. Again, you are taking control of that interview process by not waiting for them to bring it up. You're being upfront about it. Say, hey, I know this is on here, but let me tell you what I'm doing about it. And again, that's a whole different approach to that recruiter to read that, to go, okay, all right, let's see what they've got. And maybe that at least gets you the interview. And then you're able to sell yourself in the interview and move yourself through the process. But if you don't have a solution to what's missing, you're not going to waste the time to talk to you or bring you in. Because I don't have time for that. I need somebody who can hit the ground running. Hopefully that answers that.
That does. That was really good, clear cut. And I just want to make sure that if you guys do have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I had a few that I was going to throw in myself. If you do, just raise your hand, give it to Matt. He'll grab that for you. So, you said you got something?
Of course I do.
She's got War and Peace over there. It's okay. It's good though.
I think you brought up something about how you were doing skills or something like that. Like there's what if you don't have a skill and you can go on to, there's lots of websites where you can, like there's a site called Skillshare. You can learn to do anything online these days. If I start trying to learn something and I go through this, well, what water does that really hold in the job world? If you say, you know what, I mean, if you don't really have the experience, but you've learned about it, does it really matter to go out and get any kind of skills or certifications or what you can call it skills? I guess, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, absolutely.
about a certain anything.
So kind of the
Like
question.
you can learn things online.
Right.
Does that really matter if you don't have an actual certification from some kind of institution?
I'm going to answer that too. Is one, yes, it does matter. But what matters is where you're getting the knowledge from. So for example, if you're going into an industry that there's a specific competency skill or training skill or something that you need, we're reaching out to people who are doing that job. And even without reaching out, just looking at their LinkedIn profiles, you can see what certifications they have and where they got them from. And you can start seeing where the most common places people are getting that from that's recognized. So like that ATD thing I told you, that is recognized. Any recruiter out there is going to see that, and they're not going to challenge and ask any questions. They're going to know you know what you're doing. But if I went out and got that same training from Let's Eat Grandma, they're going to have no idea.
Hey, now, we have the potential of the future, so.
But they don't know them for being an expert in the facilitation training world yet, right? So they may not recognize that as being, okay, she knows what she's doing so much. So I would say, yes, it matters, and then get it from somewhere that is recognized in that industry will make a difference, because that's at least telling the recruiter or the hiring manager, I have the foundational knowledge. I may not have the applied knowledge, but I have the foundational academic knowledge. And again, that puts you one step ahead of other applicants. Because again, this is all about a ladder. Is where can you get yourself on the ladder? What can set you apart from the other applicants? Why do I want to hire you instead of her or him or the next person, right?
Well, it's enough to show some kind of ambition to, like I can't show, you know, I can't post on that I learned to be a plumber from the YouTube University, which I did. But I can't put that on there because that's not actual, but I think it shows that you know how to solve, I would put it as so that you know how to solve problems, and if you're a go-getter, you can.
But there's a way you can still work that in, whether that's through the resume, the cover letter, or the interview process. You can talk about, you know, I have a passion for learning and development.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example of how much I love it. I even got certified through the YouTube University on how to be a plumber. Like, I took it to that level. And see, what a recruiter would do exactly what you just did. They're going to get your personality. They're going to see that you do love to learn. And you're somebody that maybe it's worth investing into, that maybe you don't have the skill set exactly, but you've got the foundational knowledge and I'm willing to invest in you. So I think it's still good to share that kind of stuff just in the right context out there. So, but am I going to look at that and say, oh, she's certified from YouTube, I'm going to hire her now? But I think it's good conversational to show, you know, that you are serious about learning. You know, some people will talk about how many courses that they've done. But again, anytime you're going to talk about something like that, talk about what the impact was. It's not about collecting certifications. It's not about collecting skills and certificates. It's how did you apply what you learned. So give an example. So if
I had to build a website through Skillshare.
But what did you do with it?
I built a website for myself when I was trying to start my own business a long time ago. And
Okay.
then I started helping somebody else do theirs. But I didn't know anything about
So
building
that's the
websites.
part
I
you-
learned how to do it on Skillshare.
Yep, that's the part you focus on, not yours. It's on I help somebody else. So I self-learned how to build websites, and I used that knowledge to help a friend build their site doing ABC. That's the story you tell. Because now you've talked about learning, and you've talked about teamwork and helping others, and being altruistic. You just hit 3 wins right there in that interview.
I've never even told anybody that.
Yeah. And this is what I'm talking about when we talk about how do we repackage your experience. It's how do we repackage that to talk about whatever industry you're focusing on and leverage that experience. So with yours, you've got a ton of international experience. I'd probably lose my mind thinking of all the stories and ways that you could share your experience that would apply to almost any industry out there. And you've probably got some kind of scenario or example that we could say, here's where I utilized this skill set, you know, in this environment. Here's how I overcame this challenge. And it's about telling a story. And it's a story that gets people's attention and makes them see and feel what you feel and what you know. And when you can make that human connection, that recruiter's going to want to pass you along. Because you're not just a resume, you're somebody with a story. I can talk about you. I can, oh, you got to see this new recruit that came in. He or she's done A, B, C, they're just amazing. Because keep in mind, they got a boss they're still trying to impress too. So if they can know your story and your story's compelling, they're going to move it on because they want to see those stories happen. So a different way of thinking about it.
Fantastic. I have one more question from our question panel, then I have two to kind of close it all out here. So this is actually one of my favorite questions. I'm of course very biased here, but somebody asks, what is worth investing in, if anything, in terms of resume review services, LinkedIn profile support, cover letter, career coaching, and they even bring up attending industry shows and joining industry memberships. So it's kind of speaking to kind of the best bang for your buck here and how you kind of decide these things.
Funds are limited, so where do I put it?
Yeah.
Very common. I think that's going to be an answer that's unique for each person. So if you're someone that is very comfortable in your writing style and you feel like you can do the bulk of the resume and you just need somebody to look over it and they can do kind of a review session with you or something, maybe that's the way to go, and you use the rest of it to have them do a LinkedIn for you instead. Because LinkedIn's got some very unique algorithms in it, and the phrasing and the words and how you put stuff in there it does change. It's not static. So having somebody spend a little bit of time to do the LinkedIn profile is definitely something I would say is worth doing. And going through and looking at it, giving you feedback and the things to focus on. I would say industry associations are definitely important. If you're going to, especially transitioning or you're starting out, that's one of the things we mentioned at the beginning of networking, a diversity of thought and knowledge you can get from those networks, people you can connect to. You can learn a lot of the nuances about that industry that maybe you aren't going to find anywhere else. So those are usually pretty cheap. Most organizations, their annual fees are $100 or less a year. So there's a few out there that are more expensive, but the average ones aren't $100 or less a year usually for the dues. And more than $100 worth of knowledge you'll get from those for sure. I'm a member of SIOP, which is Society for Industrial Organizational Psychology, and that one every year is amazing. I get so much content from them, our newsletters, trends that are happening in the IO industry. It's great. I mean, it's a great site. They've got job postings on there for people with IO backgrounds. There's academic papers that are being written to post. So for me, it's a really great investment to keep a tab on that. Career coaching, again, I think it depends on where you are. Not everybody is ready for a career coach, and not everybody actually needs a full career coach. So I know it's contradictory to my business, but it's being honest. Because I do have clients that I won't work with. I talk to them, they've got to be in the right frame of mind, the right place to be able to do the work. It's not, you don't go hire a career coach because you're in crisis mode. And I will get a sense of that very quickly if somebody's in crisis mode. And I will give them suggestions, I'll give them recommendations and resources. But if you're in crisis mode, you're not going to want to do the work. You're going to be, how do I get this done? How do I get my bills paid? I'm running out of money. My spouse is yelling at me. My kids have got stuff coming up. And all this gloom and doom is bouncing around in your head, and you're looking for a shortcut. So hiring a career coach is not a shortcut, because we're not recruiters. It's not our job to go find you the job. So a career coach is going to be, hopefully you get a career coach before that transition needs to happen, so we can work on that plan together. So if it's something that you know is coming, you want to make a planned transition, let's work together and plan that out for you. But if it's an unexpected transition, like a layoff or an unexpected reorg or something like that, just go into it open-minded, knowing, okay, I have X amount of time. Here's what I want to accomplish. I need to figure out what I'm going to do, whether it's stay in the industry or I'm going to change industries. Understand it's going to take time. There's a statistic out there that I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it's enough to make me think about it. The average position that you're looking for, it usually takes at least 1 month for every $10,000 in salary. So if you have a $100,000 a year job, it can take up to 10 months to find another one sometimes that's paying the same. Because the higher the salary, the more the skill sets and all those things are more specialized. The openings often don't come up with as much as the lower dollar positions do. So it can take time. So you have to plan that ahead of time. You've got to know how much time is that going to take to find it. And again, going back to networking, I know we keep talking about it, but that's the importance of growing that right network so that you know what's on the back burner. You know there's some options out there. So if something does unexpectedly happen, you've got people you can tap into. Say, hey, just got reorg. If you have any referrals or anybody you know is hiring, just let me know. Again, I'm not asking for you to hire me. I'm not asking for you to get me the job. I'm asking you to refer me to places that you know might be a fit. So it's a lot easier for someone to want to do that. But with the transitions, it's definitely a tough place to be, especially when it's unexpected. Planned transitions are good. career coach also is great if you are in a job that you love, to talk about how do we help you move along in that industry or in that organization. How do you navigate the politics of that organization? Is it right to stay with that company doing that job, or is there another company doing the same job that would be a better fit for you? Do you want to move up into leadership or into a senior level position, and talk about what that path looks like, and having a partner to go along that journey with you that's unbiased. That's one of the beauties of a career coach, is I have no skin in the game. I have no emotional connection to what you're going through or the people involved. I can look at it very tactically and very logically, and give you perspective that you may not have, because we're too close to it. Our emotional brain is overloading our intellectual brain when we're in the middle of it. Because to us, everything's important, everything, and it just gets really confusing because we care so much about it. When you get that neutral person, we can ask some of those harder questions that a lot of times a client doesn't want to ask themselves. And that's where I was asking that question before, do you want to do that work? I'm doing it because I know I can do it. I'm doing it because I know I can make money. But should I do it?
Can I ask a follow-up question? If you are going to engage some of those services, how do you screen potential coaches, etc.?
So we had somebody ask, what's the best way to screen potential services?
Yeah.
Talk about career coaching, and even resume writing would be great too.
Absolutely. I think resume writers, they will typically be able to provide you some type of sample so you can see the type of quality work they do. But one of the things I always ask resume writers is, how do you create your resumes? Do you do them yourself? Do you do them from scratch? Do you outsource it? You will find a lot of cheap resume companies out there. You go on a website called Fiverr, you can get a resume for 20 bucks. And they'll have it for you in 24 hours. But they have outsourced it to a third world country, to someone whose English is their fourth language, and do not understand the nuances, and it's going to be a nightmare. A lot of the cheaper companies will do that, or they will buy resume writing software that you could buy off of the shelf at Staples yourself, and they're just plugging in what you told them, and then charging you $50, $100 for it. So making sure you have somebody that you're asking those questions, how do you do your process? And I know they do a really good process here. When it comes to a coach, every coach should be willing to give you at least a 30-minute initial consultation session. If a coach does not want to give you that for free, absolutely. If they're not willing to do that, you don't want to work with them. Because A, they're either going to be too busy and they're not going to be serious about working with you, which isn't usually the case. Usually the case is they're not a great coach, in my opinion, and they don't want to talk to you. I don't have a problem spending 30 minutes with somebody just to say, hey, what's going on? It might take you a week to get that scheduled if I have a really heavy workload for a week or two, but I'll always get that scheduled with you. I have a standing open window on my website. It's an open 30-minute, anytime you can go on my calendar and pick a 30-minute window, and I'll do a session to talk through what you're looking for.
Yep.
And that intake session, or that's not intake, that's an initial consultation session, is where you've got to ask questions. Is what is your coaching style? Like, how do you coach? What is it that you coach about? Because I'm going to be asking you, what do you want to focus on? I'm going to ask you if you ever had coaching before, and if you did, what worked and what didn't. I'm going to ask you, how committed are you to making change? What type of coaching do you want me to provide you? Because there's partnership coaching where we brainstorm together. There's accountability coaching where I'm going to hold you accountable. It's a little bit more assertive type of coaching. So there's different styles of coaching that people can use, but we got to find what's the right fit for you. So a lot of it is about a personality connection. I've hired different coaches for myself. Matter of fact, I actually have a pod coach now that I hired that's working with me because I've got a podcast that I'm going to probably be starting the first of the year. And I wanted to understand it and know more about it. And I went through probably 7 different people before I picked the one I picked, because I just didn't feel a vibe with that other person. Because you've got to be able to feel like you can trust the person, you can open up and talk. Now, they don't have to be an expert in your industry. Is that helpful? Sure, because they can get the nuances of your industry, but they don't need to be. A good coach is going to be able to help you no matter what your industry is, because it's about you being the subject expert of your career and your industry. Now, if you're transitioning into something that's not your niche, then the two of you can do it together and figure out those resources and how do you learn it and develop it. But it's really just taking that time to learn, taking that time to talk, taking that time to have them walk you through their approach. Some people have a very structured program where they will take you through processes and documents and things they have. Others will do it more organic, where it's kind of just ad hoc. Each time you talk, what do you want to work on this time? What do you want to work on this time? So it just depends on what you're looking for. hope that's it's a long answer to a short question.
Fantastic. So we actually gotta wrap it up over here just for the sake of time. We actually have more time after when I connect with Al, or I actually recommend talking to us afterwards. But to kind of conclude it all, to ask the final question, what words of advice do you have for job seekers?
Great question. Find your chief motivational officer. Find that person in your life that's going to be that partner to share the load with you. I think that's the biggest piece of advice. Share that emotional load of the struggles you go through, the disappointments, the up times, the happiness. Somebody to bounce things off of that are going to be neutral for you. So whether that's a career coach, whether that's a family member, friend, I think that would be one piece of advice because that's going to help you along that journey. I would say if you're in a career that you love, continue to plan ahead. Take control of your career. Don't wait for somebody else to make that decision for you. So whether that's planning out who you're going to talk to, who's going to mentor with you, what training you're going to focus on, don't wait for somebody else to make the decision. Hey, I want to promote this person. I want to develop this person. Take the time to own your career and go after it yourself. Because nobody should ever care as much about you and your career as you do, and they never will. So you've got to take that whole lot of words and run with it.
Fantastic. Well, Al, you've been an absolutely incredible guest here. If everyone can give a round of applause for Al. And for those of you listeners, we've had a very engaged group of job seekers and potential not even job seekers, but asking really amazing questions. If I could just show you their faces and how awesome they were, I totally would. But they've been awesome, so I'd like to thank them for asking the questions that provided the content for this specific episode. So what I'm going to do is I'll provide a link to Al's LinkedIn or his website below, so you'll be able to contact him about any of that. But as of now, that wraps up the 18th episode of the Let's Eat Grandma Job Seekers podcast, and that's a wrap.
Awesome. Now that that part's done, we can get to your question.
Yeah. So what we will do, just have a quick announcement here. We've got to keep it kind of moving here, but there will be time to connect with us afterwards if you do have questions, especially for Al. He came all the way from Dallas just to do this today, so definitely take advantage of that. Just some announcements really quick. You can listen to this episode on the Let's Eat Grandma. It's the LEG Job Seekers podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, whatever you use. Subscribe to it. We're going to have it posted either tomorrow or the day after, and you'll be able to hear this exact replay in high definition because we rigged it that way. I'd like to give a shout out to Capital Factory. You said he works at Capital Factory. I've worked at Capital Factory, he does. It's an amazing place. They actually help us run these events every single month, so I owe a lot to them. I don't know if I could be as successful as I am with this business if they hadn't supported me, so shout out to them. The third thing, like I said, if you need help with your career or resume, talk to us after this. And stay up to date with Austin Job Seekers. There's a meetup called Get Your Resume Past Keywords and Filters. That's not a real meetup. We're going to delete that one. The actual meetup is Austin Job Seekers. So stay connected with that one. We have events like this every single month. And that's that. So before I let you guys go, I would really appreciate it if you guys left feedback on the surveys. And you can put your email address if you want Al's resources or my resources afterwards, and we'll follow up with all of you guys.
And I'll give everybody one of my cards too,
So
reach out.
So thank you very much.
And these are brand new cards. You're the first ones to get them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And what was your question?
So I had a question, kind of follow up to both of them. After you've done your resume, after you've done your LinkedIn, and you have your network, what tips do you have when actually going out and connecting with these individuals? I'm just going to give a quick background on myself. I'm a first generation college grad. I moved in from Houston. Didn't know anybody. I have a very organic network, which I'm very, very thankful for. So I came late because I was networking. I ate with a friend, have a dinner tonight, coffee tomorrow. Don't want to spend that much money, but yeah, I'm willing to do it. That's not really a problem. I want to, the priority is making sure that I get a real, genuine connection. Not to say, I'm not doing that. But just what other tips do you have to kind of just, be able to leverage yourself and your skills?
So what's your end goal?
The end goal is ultimately, I think job seekers not just get a job but a career. Something.
Doing what?
Oh, for me specifically? Put me on the spot.
Hey.
I'd love to get into management consulting. I think that's something I'm very passionate about. I know it's very diverse. Just kind of testing water. I know I'd be
So like
good.
with management consultant for like Deloitte or something?
Right. That Accenture.
So have you ever done an internship?
Through any of that, no. I do have a certification through Macomb School of Business. I did do, I majored in government, so I have internships, at the Capitol, I've interned for a congressman. I mean, that degree literally took me around the world. I've gone to Israel and I've studied politics, international politics in here. A lot of problem-solving skills that I would like to bring in with the skills that I
Problem
learned.
solving, negotiating, all that, yeah.
Right, and so it's interesting. Honestly, I'm loving the challenge so far, but just when I'm actually going out and meeting with them, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm doing it right. Maybe I'm not.
You're doing a lot of stuff right already. So meeting people in person and saying, hey, you're going to take you to lunch, can I grab coffee with you? Those are all great techniques. But I would also start looking at where can you get internship for a management consulting firm. Because one of the struggles is you have a lot of experience doing a lot of things, but how much experience do you have actually consulting people on how to manage? Because if I had my business and I was going to hire somebody with a business coach or management consultant, I would say, okay, what's your background, where have you been, what have you done? And if you don't have anything, how am I going to trust you? You have certification, which was to her point earlier, is you get certification but not the real experience. So that's where an internship like that would be helpful. Because usually those internships, they end up getting hired. So it's an easier way into the organization. So I would look at that. The other thing would be reaching out to some different management consulting companies, some of the smaller boutique ones, and see if you're willing to do a quid pro quo, to come do some work with them and help them, if they help do some training for you and give you some exposure. Because they may do a non-disclosure agreement, let you come sit in on some client consulting sessions or something, if you're willing to do some work for them or take care of some admin work on them. You just got to negotiate. Because again, at the end of the day, there's no rules. I mean, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, unethical, everything's an option. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of the services that I've done in my business that to get built up and growing, I didn't pay cash for. I traded services. So web designer, hey, okay, you need some help on marketing? Okay, I'll help you with that. You want help with my website? Okay, done. I mean, it's finding who you can help and how they can help you and negotiate it. So if you want to get some more exposure, I think it'd be good. There's some other certifications I would look at too. There's some really cool programs out there. I would definitely look at John Maxwell, the Maxwell Group. That is an incredible program. I'm part of the Maxwell Group too. Not that I'm pitching it for that reason. You get access to professional coaches that help you learn how to be a consultant, public speaker, whatever path you want to go down. And the resources they give you is incredible. And they've got something like 20,000 members or something all over the world. So definitely want to look into too.
I think, I mean, not just a job seeking, but that is the end goal. But I've also, been asking for just, I want to know their job. I want to know just general advice, just knowledge,
Now you're on the right path. Get those in-person conversations, but I would even say be willing to do some phone ones because you've got local people, which is great. It's a big planet.
Right.
Think global. If there's anybody out there that's got a skill set, anybody out there that's got a knowledge, anybody that's got a work history that you find valuable, don't hesitate to reach out. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to say no. Anybody die? No. So reach out, call, talk to them, right? But I'll tell you, I was pleasantly surprised when I really started organically going after and talking to people like that remotely. How often people were willing to talk to me and share those nuggets. So, and especially for someone like yourself, you've got so much experience. I mean, going into that alternate industry, just find some people that are doing it and talk to them. They will help you craft the way to phrase your background for you. They will make it so easy for you. Oh yeah, you got this, well that's the same thing as this, and they'll help you connect those dots. And then I think you'll have a much easier time with it. Because you've just got, my mind's going 7 miles a minute right now with all the experience you've got that I could tweak and twist and just rephrase to go to just about any industry. So you got a wealth of knowledge you brought. So cool. All right, cool. Anybody else? Anything else before we wrap up?
Question, you said in terms of investment, if value investment, you can could make. One of the things you mentioned was LinkedIn profiles.
Mhm.
Do you have any recommendations of who can help you with LinkedIn profiles? Okay. Well, that might be, okay.
Yeah, that's part of their services.
Okay.
So they can absolutely help you out with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we thought like we have packages, so it's LinkedIn, resume, but sometimes we help people if we know the LinkedIn's their biggest area of concern. We just focus on LinkedIn. So yeah, there are good services out there, mine, but
There's a
but,
lot of
yeah.
people offering services out there that,
Yeah.
and because I don't think, you're not LinkedIn certified, are you?
So we are resume,
Resume,
so
okay.
CPRW.
Right. So the only other person out there that I know that is really good at LinkedIn stuff is there's what they call LinkedIn certified professionals out there, but they are extremely pricey. You're going to pay probably $1,200 for one of them to do your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, they get paid a lot,
Yeah.
and I don't even think it's worth it. But that's the only other one that I know
Yeah.
from a quality standpoint. They know what they're doing. I just think they're very overpriced. So
There's definitely a sweet spot. You talked about those $20 resumes. I'm like, I know the time. It's like, don't waste your money like doing that. Like, it's better just throw something together yourself. So, but then $1,000, way too much, I think, for this, this type of thing.
Yeah, so LinkedIn. So like I said, he can help you with it. But if you want to do some research or whatever, you'll see a lot of them out there with different price points. But usually anybody's going to charge anywhere between $200 and $300 usually for a LinkedIn profile. Which is usually pretty reasonable for that, because they're going to go through and ask you all the questions, the questionnaire you're going to fill out, and go through and update all the content. The one thing we didn't talk about, by the way, this is for everybody that has a LinkedIn profile. Start going out and giving recommendations and getting recommendations. If you don't have those on your profile, start building them. So if there's anybody that you're connected to that you can vouch for,
Yeah.
give them one. If there's anybody that knows you, ask them to give you one. Get as many of those as you can. So to your point earlier about the social aspect, if you don't have your social media, but I go to your LinkedIn, I can see all these people recommending you, I'm going to feel much better about that.
So that's the list of references of like today.
Yeah.
So that was hard with the transition, because I've got tons of stuff that from the logistics and transportation and all kinds of stuff. And I got lots of references, and I'm trying to change my, and then I would have put, other stuff like not even presentation.
All the skill.
All the stuff I want to go into, and then it's like only maybe one or two, and I'm like, because I just put it on there, it's new.
Yeah,
The others
anybody
are
that's on your
different
LinkedIn
years.
that you know, tell them, hey, can you write me a recommendation on my skill, my training ability? Have them phrase it about your training, because that'll help with your proving you know what you're doing, yeah.
Going back to your suggestion, I do have recommendations on my LinkedIn profile. They're back from like 2015.
Okay, that's still
Do I
good.
need updated?
I would just keep
Do I-
getting more. I mean, the more people you work with that can still vouch for you today, that's always great. And then also make sure you're giving them back too, though.
Okay.
Because they want to see the two-way reciprocation, that you're not just getting stuff from people, you're also helping people and you're giving back as well. Because if it ends up being lopsided and it's all you getting and you're not giving back, what do you think that tells me about your personality? And would you be a right fit for my organization? You want all the credit, but you don't want to give any credit.
Right.
That could be the perception. So definitely make sure you give some where it's appropriate. I'm not saying make them fake, I mean, do it genuine, but make sure you're giving some back too. It doesn't have to be balanced, but make sure you give some. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, everybody. It's great questions today, so I appreciate it. I'm glad it came down. Because he originally wanted to have me up on the screen and do a virtual session. So
It would not have been the same.
yeah, it wouldn't have been the same.
Is that what you do with the clients that don't live?
Yeah, actually, I don't have a single client that I work with in person. For the last 4 years, every client I work with remotely on Zoom. And some of my biggest clients, even companies I work with, Sacramento, California, Seattle, Washington. I got clients in Pennsylvania, Delaware, West Virginia, all over. So, because the days of having to be in person, because for me, I think the Zoom sessions are great because clients don't have to fight traffic. You can be at home in a comfortable place, and it's better for a lot of people's time and schedules out there as well. So, definitely makes it easier. But I'm not opposed to doing it in person. I just think so far my clients seem to like the remote options. I can get to more people.
Yes. And they get to do what they want to do.
Absolutely. Awesome. So the other thing I'll tell Bruce, and those of you that came in person, on my cards, there's the Coaching Companion Program. It's something I just launched recently. It's a whole new way of doing coaching, because traditional coaching is hour-long sessions. They're about proactive and building. But some people want shorter sessions that are a little bit more reactive, I guess a little bit. It's dealing with a specific challenge or a specific issue in your career. So the Coaching Companion program, I designed that, and that's a flat fee for a year. You get unlimited 15-minute coaching sessions for a whole year. So all you got to do is make sure you complete whatever the assignment was from the prior section. So if you had a form to fill out, or if you had something to research for us or whatever, do that before you schedule the next session. So some clients on that program right now, I'll talk to them maybe 2 or 3 times in a month. Other times I might go 2 months and not talk to them, and suddenly something happens and they want to partner and talk through it. So it's a great kind of almost a coach on demand program. So traditional coaching, most people charge anywhere between $250 and $500 an hour for coaching. My Coaching Companion program, I'm only going to charge $2,000 for a whole year for unlimited 15-minute sessions. So that really breaks it down to about $160 a month. So it's a whole new way of doing coaching. Nobody else out there is doing it like this. So it's a whole new program. But I can do one-on-one sessions with people if anybody wants to get. I just have a touch base, things like that. But yeah, I'm happy to help wherever I can. But that Coaching on Demand program has been really successful because everybody's busy. Having an hour session is tough for some people, and it's overwhelming. I mean, because you think about it, we've been here for just over an hour. Look how much stuff we talked about. That gets a lot of time. So 15 minutes, boom, we get in and talk about what you got to talk about, and you go back to your day. So anybody can fit that into their schedule. So it's worked out pretty well. No. Well, again, that's why I still do the hour sessions. Because some people need the hour session. But not everybody does. And now we have that program as well. So we definitely do both. But any of the services that I offer, I'll do 10% discounts for everybody if anybody's interested in any of that stuff too since you came today. And also I'll do something else for this group. If I wasn't planning to do this one, I'll do it anyway. Are any of you familiar with behavioral assessments? Ever taken one? So are you familiar with DISC? Okay. So DISC is behavior style. The second part of it is the 12 driving forces. And I mentioned our driving forces a couple times here. So if you email me and tell me you were here at the class, I will give you a free Talent Insights assessment. And that report runs for $300 by itself. And I'll give it to you for free. And you will know what your driving forces are, how that aligns to your career. It'll also tell us how you like to be managed, how you like to communicate, how you like to be motivated. These are all things that you can use when you go to interview for jobs. Because it's not about them just interviewing you, it's when they say, do you have questions for me? And we can use what's in that report to say, yes, how do you handle this? How do you communicate? How do you motivate your team? How do you manage your team? And does what they say align with what you need? And that's a report will give you that.
Do you make the report?
What's that?
Do you have all of your clients take that report?
Just about every client I do, the package I have that included.
Just so you know where
Yeah, there's different versions of it because the Talent Insights is just the first 2 sciences. It's called Science of Self is the whole package that we do. That includes your competency skills, your acumen capacity, so there's other sciences that we get in there. But just the minimum 2 sciences for DISC and driving force will give you huge insights into your career. I usually do the trimetric, which includes the competencies, that's your skills and how developed you are in your skills. And then if you're in a leadership position or you're looking to get into management, I usually do the acumen with it because the acumen tells me, the acumen is scary. People say it's like a tarot card reading, it's really scary. Because I can tell you about your ability, how you see yourself, how you see the world, do you understand people, do you understand how the world and systems fit together. It is a very deep psychological science in that one. You can't fake it. It's a little scary. It's your self-direction, your sense of self, do you know who you are and where you're heading, how do you feel about it. It's a really cool science.
I've taken many, so would you accept any of those already?
Probably not.
I've done a lot of the DISCs already.
Yeah, all of
they
us,
always come out the same. You can't.
Well, here's the difference. The company I'm certified through is called TTI Success Insights. So if it's one of theirs, I'd be willing to look at it if it's less than a year old. But TTI is the only assessment provider out there who has the reliability and validity studies to back it up. It's also EEOC and Office of Federal Compliance for Personnel compliant with all of that. And they're also the only assessment company I know that has an in-house neurology department and a neurologist on staff that does EEG brain scans to verify the reports are accurate. Like nobody out there, they update the lexicon language of their report every year to make sure the language matches what we use today. Because there's people out there selling discs for 20 bucks, but it's the same disc from 20 years ago. So if the words don't match to what we say today, people are going to misinterpret it and they're going to answer stuff wrong. So it's the only assessment tool I use for that stuff because I trust it and I've never had a client tell me it's less than 90% accurate. So, but if you want to understand yours, I'll do a free assessment for anybody that was here today. So just shoot me an email and let me know.
Sweet. Thanks, Al. I don't know what to say. Seriously, thank you. Yeah, you guys are, thanks for being here too. Like, where did you guys park? Like, what's y'all's story? How'd y'all get here? Just drove down. And did everyone find us through meetup.com, or were there other people who, like Facebook people by any chance? Meetup?
Eventbrite.
Eventbrite?
I was just searching career and I was like, I'm gonna go to this.
Nice.
Well,
Yeah.
we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found you Capital Factory.
Capital Factory. Nice. Yeah. They promote, I know, in the newsletter and on that screen there.
Hopefully everybody took at least one nugget away, right?
Yeah.
That's good. That's my form of measure. If you got one thing out of it, then it was worth it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Way more than one thing.
What's that?
Way more than one thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I took the whole 20 piece.
That's good. That's good. I call it. I refer to it as the one degree of trajectory change. So it only takes anytime you do something like this, 90% of what people hear they don't retain. So 10% of it they'll retain, but they'll only apply about 1% of it. But 1% can make the difference between landing on the moon and missing it.
Oh, yeah. And you have a whole recording on a podcast.
Yes.
So,
And others.
there you go. Listen to that on your drive.
Well, everybody have safe travels home.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, did you even introduce yourself?
No, you're just the photographer.
Yeah.
You're way ahead.
It's just on there.
Do you guys want to take a group photo?
I'm just like, I realize like I'm a
Yes.
Oh, group photo for
very,
meetup.
very
Yeah.
on transitional periods, but it's like very, very
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure.
true.
But I feel like I don't want to be this one and one half. I need to kind of go way back. I'm trying to figure out if I need to vent now or later. It's like,
Let's get you slide back up. We're gonna do a quick group photo, guys. If y'all don't mind, we're gonna over here.
Thanks, Mike.
Way ahead of me. Put you in the driver's seat as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, you're not a 15-minute client.
Where do we put these?
Perfect. You can put them, I'll take them actually.
Would you tell us if you willing to take a group photo for meetup?
No, I almost hogged up the whole.
No, it was good stuff. That was good topics. No, hopefully it was helpful.
I'll take your question or whatever.
15 minutes of it.
yes, absolutely.
I have to send you like questions at a time, and then I call you.
Well, what would happen is someone like yourself is once you get yourself where you want to be.
Yeah.
So it's just to maintain. So initially you would be the hour sessions and then eventually into the 15. So where other people are just, they need the 15s initially because they have like an ADHD short attention span. They can't do it.
Absolutely. Budget game. It's always
These.
somebody's gonna take them back there. Sorry for the mic.
These are my go-getters who are out here on a Tuesday night looking on how they can better themselves.
2 days before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, 2 days before Thanksgiving. Thank you guys
Yeah.
so much. Seriously.
Yeah.
Take one. Probably should be on to help. Nice, very good for that. One more. Couple more.
All right, everybody say fuzzy pickle.
I think the mustache complements your photography skills.
I look like a real hipster. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
You guys all think
Thank
you're
you
great.
everyone.
Hey, thanks a lot.
I'll take
Appreciate it.
y'all's service.
You absolutely. Good luck.
Thanks for coming. Nice to meet you. Cool. Chris. Yeah.
Good to meet you. The next one, thanks a lot.
Leo.
You can turn your question on the table.
Leo? Nice.
Okay, no.
Oh, Neil. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What was the name of
They
your
go,
Brian, thank you.
represent the recent podcast too. That's awesome too. Usually like anyone who's helping their job search from people who are in college, all the way to
Seriously.
people who've had an entire career.
Biggest wealth of resources, like why we invited him to come down here.
It's
Like your
very
podcast
awesome.
with him, and because you can't share enough, like about what he does, initially, how he does.
Yeah, cool. And good questions too. I wish we could have got
Yeah.
recorded.
I think we're probably going to stay for another hour. Appreciate you coming.
And we do this as partners, doing resume writing.
Yeah, we have these every single month.
So I've had three clients in the past. local medical facility in Dallas. And she absolutely hated it.
We did the first one.
And she wanted to do something else, so we helped her figure out how to start
There's no real software. We're still very human services. Yeah, it's what we do. It's really how we find out we can help.
Oh, okay, so you got to backtrack.
Part of it, yeah. How we get out there.
Still plenty of time, plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just.
We just got done with,
So one of the things I'd recommend for you typically is a strong interest in inventory software. Are you familiar with it? Okay. I'd usually recommend doing one of those. I think there's like 4 years ago. But basically, they take the ONET data and they take it to like steroids to a whole new level. And they'll say, here's the 10 industries I think you might get fit for, here's potential jobs in those industries. So it might come up with accounts, but then it'll have a specific kind of accounts that might be fit based on your interests. And then that combined with the Talent Insights assessment might help
You got it.
good luck. I mean, you got a lot of potential, so it's so many options. You got a calm demeanor, which is going to be good for counseling. I started because I am working on a PhD in biopsychology, and I thought about going into the counseling side, the patient side, and one of my wife's coworkers' father was a counselor. So I drove down to his office one day and sat in and talked to him, and he kind of took me through my day. And I'm like, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
I was saying whether or not, but you want to do it.
It's not my
That's awesome.
There's counseling for relationships, there's counseling for addictions, there's counseling for kids, there's counseling for families, and there's so many value in that. Thanks very much. So tell me about dialing into and don't feel bad, that's about 75% of the people in the program. They're doing what pays the bills or what they can do, and they're good at it.
You won't get that in your house. Not where you can
I do, yeah. Yeah, I'm on the fifth floor. Yeah, nice.
No, I don't think you need an hour to do more research on it.
Yeah. It's always around, and my brother was
No, absolutely, have a safe travels.
Oh, once a week?
Yeah, and that's a big part of the,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
we'll find somebody there. Yeah, we have friends who just
Okay.
People who have come in and spoken during this podcast, and actually, people who talked about having jobs, things like that. So if you would afford to like be here, like whenever possible, to put in time, and it's like, it was like $40 a month. So that's what it is. You know, it's more than just.
When you can do a planned transition, it's a lot easier, because then you can start doing intern private, you can start doing volunteer work on it. There's different ways you can gain that practical experience, and then you make that transition when you have something lined up, so you don't have a gap.
That's just another example of ways that
School, definitely good.
I'm curious about the Let's Eat Grandma.
Oh, yeah. So there's a little joke that says if you take the comma and let's eat grandma, you're saying you want to eat your grandmother, versus including it, you're saying let's eat grandma. So as a writing something, we thought it was cool, but it's niche. So yeah, we ended up kind of rolling it back to different
You're probably stuck when that's what you do. If you fill in the blanks with the other volunteer work or things like that, that can offset that. Because what they're saying is called you're stuck in that industry. It's a weird term. Yeah, so no, I wouldn't say that necessarily has to be great. But definitely I would start working on additional things that you can do with other organizations that are. I'd say a year to year and a half max, focusing on building those relationships with intern work, part-time.
But most importantly, you will be just
we do, yeah. We're on the
sure how you get it. I'm always
The only reason I want to go to 16.
So do you think,
Yes.
what do you think makes someone an expert?
From over there.
Right.
Or like, if I have to go to like a
Projection.
office hour.
I feel you. I'm with you on that.
So just be clear, you're doing it because you like it. Because you can be an expert without a PhD.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the smartest people I know, and I value their opinion, only have high school diplomas. So it's all about how you present yourself and the knowledge you acquire and how you share it and teach it to others. Make you an expert. It's not the PhD. I'm getting a PhD because it's been my mission. I'm a very tactical person, so when I set my mind on something, I don't stop. And I'll be the first person in my family to ever have a PhD. So there's a lot of
Been
motivation.
for over a year. I just joined.
Plus, I plan on doing some adjunct professional work, so I can do it for my master's, which I have, but they typically want the PhD.
We have dedicated
And that's
desks
something that,
over
when
on
I say never
Susie
do
Walking 5.
teaching,
You can walk on the website.
It's almost as easy as
like,
that.
the
it's
budget
just
game room is up
primary,
Right.
secondary.
Oh, okay, so
I
y'all are
was
over by like,
listening.
is it?
When I went to college, my mom gave me
I always forget it. It's like,
and he's like,
We're in RTD too, like in the center.
If you want to do any kind of professional work, adjunct faculty work, PhD, you gotta have.
Yeah.
But what do you want to do?
I have like
And
a,
that's
for
it.
example, I have a bunch of
There's
friends that
so
are
many
connection.
obviously,
things
like,
that
that's
interest
a
me,
flat
and
hour.
I don't even, I haven't even enjoyed right now what.
This would be the time you need to figure that out for your master's. I did my associates in business management, I did my bachelor's in psychology, and then I did psychology for my master's. Because I knew I wanted psychology, but I wasn't sure what psychology. So I did just the standard psychology. And as I was having my program, I fine-tuned it.
It's like,
There's just a new one. I thought, why do I have to pay for everybody mine?
Remember, it was like very smart.
And I'm like, I don't want to do another one.
Yeah.
I don't want to do another one.
No, absolutely, like,
Yeah, that's
someone
probably
in
Apple.
factories,
And it, I did all my,
That was the,
Side courses, and I did general writing, but I guess I did, and then at the very tail end, I took the.
Everything else is
social policy
You're in a better spot.
So that's where you need to be.
classes.
So now it's about sitting down and developing a plan. How do you get there? What do you need? What do you gotta do?
Okay.
That's the hard part now.
yeah, it's not just that process, it's more like.
Start looking for what are the jobs that you really want to do, and the job titles for that.
So, my next question is that we kind of look into it.
So what's the academic field?
Political
science?
I'm starting with this for 4 years.
Or
Like, I think it's like
or is it-
every single day.
All right, so just type in public administrative jobs, government public administrative jobs.
Tremendous.
And type that in, you get a whole list of jobs that come up, and just start writing down all the job titles. So you're gonna see what each person, what each organization or company or whatever calls it. And then that's when you start searching those. What's the job posting, what does it say the skill sets?
It's good, but,
You
So it's about dissecting it, and that's where you build your plan. You say, okay, this is the job I want, here's the things I do have, here's the things I don't have, and then now here's what we
No, absolutely, let's do it.
And just approach it very logically. Makes it simple.
That's even better.
We complicate things way too much now.
Great. Both of us are.
That's why
I think I was like,
build a partner and Hey, look, I need you to hold me accountable.
Well, these only be for me, I would.
Yeah.
It's right for right now, and I have all the.
when I'm here.
Yeah.
It's also something important. I'm like,
Well, hopefully you took nuggets out of that.
I realized I was like, awesome,
I love the men's group.
I like helping people. I like seeing people hit their aha
I
moments.
told my girlfriend, I was like.
Because I know when I had mine, I still remember it. When I got my aha moment, I'll never forget it. I remember like it was yesterday. So it was a game changer to me, and the last 10 years, my life has been on the job through.
Oh, yeah.
Right here,
Yeah.
it was like CFO or COO.
But also want to follow start.
Yeah.
I just got the COO of like Bumble.
Yeah.
You gotta keep them in the
Awesome. So someone else like, do I write it? If I don't know what I'm going for, I can't really write it.
I didn't realize who I was talking to. I was
But
like,
then again, I don't need it, I can't really.
Oh, yeah.
and like, I didn't realize he was the one that was hosting the event.
Yeah.
Like, he was
Yeah,
like,
it takes a little bit of like strategy and like working through our process. It's like usually what we'll do is we'll look at specific job postings that we're applying for, get sort of targeted.
I was just like,
Yeah.
and then he was like, and
Yeah.
everybody laughed.
Yeah.
Everybody laughed.
Did you laugh too? Like,
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Stock options.
I totally laughed, but like, it was so funny. It's just like,
it's, yeah, I don't know if that's possible. Yeah. Yeah, well, let's connect, and if you put your email down there, you'll get an email from all of us.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Reply.
We'll follow up. We have your email on the questionnaire.
Of course, look over it.
I'll send it over.
Consultation.
Yeah,
So
cool.
we'll
I'll save
you,
it like mine.
look at the places you're applying for, and we will give you advice.
So I have more questions.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really on it.
It's a $1 question now.
I used to
Yeah.
think that,
Yeah.
I don't have a 4-year degree, and I used to think that that was,
Like, yeah,
like
we'll
that.
email you.
I didn't finish before I started working, and, I was doing well, and I just,
Didn't see the need.
well, I always
Yeah,
wanted
that's usually what's
to,
helpful.
I
Yeah,
just,
We don't have like one size fits all types of answers, so like, kind of like what you're doing.
but now here I am, and I wanted to transition, I feel like the fact that I'm having bachelor's degree on my
Yeah.
resume.
Yeah.
Does the job require it?
That's an interesting job.
That's the thing you gotta look for when you go to apply for the job.
It's like
What are the
depends on how you
requirements?
right?
And what are the
That's
needs?
why I think
Yeah.
that
But like
it's
all that
special.
knowledge, all that
You need
knowledge.
a program, or actually,
So I
wanted to.
stressed out.
Just
come
basically
from the
like
bottom
where
of
something where
the
you're
front
not
desk. They want, I said, 4-year degree also. It doesn't matter, especially in Boston, everybody wants a degree for everything.
Well, especially tech, anything tech's gonna be required. Almost guaranteed.
Yeah. It's like.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're doing sales though, I have found out that unless you have like knowledge already. Like,
Yeah.
stuff you wanna do sales for.
My other coworker applied too.
And it wasn't necessarily that I,
Awesome.
to be honest, I would take that job for sales or things like that. And I don't even know if it was necessarily, it was in logistics and if it was sales, I would take the sales job. Because I know I was doing a sales job. And everybody tells me, you do great at sales.
we're here like 50 hours.
Okay, but
It
I
is a
don't
great
necessarily want
That's
that.
his domain.
Like,
You really can tell you like when that's.
I'm starting to wonder if I need to figure out.
Things that actually make a difference.
So many things, and what I think are skills and talents and experiences.
Is there,
I don't,
other
I'm
than
afraid that
yeah,
it's
I guess if there's like,
I
It's
don't
great
know
to
which
get
one
all
is
the
going
county
to be,
here.
it's going to be the wrong one again.
And
I'm
what's-
going to waste
Did you
my
guys
time
get
down the wrong way.
So what's the,
Yeah.
so if you pick something and it works out, what's the best case scenario?
Events are key because I know this place does more meetup events than any other
I
building
don't
in
feel like
Texas.
I ever
At
need a
least that's what they
vacation
tout,
when
and,
you, feels like you
it's
need a
unreal how
vacation
many
when you're
Right.
doing
What's the worst thing that would happen?
But
Absolute worst
even
thing
my
that
day to
happened.
day, so like I said, I spend like 40, 50 hours
at least the
working
rest
here,
of my
so
life
I'll go
doing
around, I'll
something
talk
I'm
to
absolutely
Does it have to be
enjoying.
the rest of your life
And I
working
don't
on-
want to do this transition again. I'm not doing this transition a long time. And whenever you get the worst, it's
software
going to be way
developer
worse. I feel like this is my last chance to make the right decision.
laptops and stuff.
So, because one of the thought processes
Or
is,
even though I die.
That was like several minutes more than.
so, yeah, you're gonna have to take some time to kind of narrow it down to think what's gonna be a good fit. Because you've got everything from logistics to the tech world, training and development, which is all three very different worlds. So, the umbrella one, I think that applies and would probably work for you, is focusing on the training and development part. Because you can do that in any industry that you feel comfortable training and teaching in. And in a trainer role, you're going to be in different environments, different groups of people. So that's going to feed that constantly doing something new and having those different interests. Because you're going to engage with different people. And you're going to have different conversations with different people. And you're going to hear about different topics from different people. So that's all going to feed that interest piece that you have.
So maybe that's what's hurting, what I would be coaching on is to narrow it down, because I think that my resume isn't very straightforward. It's got stuff all over the place. And I think that people will look at it and actually be confused. Or even a job search site, they'd be like,
Right.
okay, I see everything you've done, but what the hell are you looking for?
Right.
I think it would be hard for me, it's like I'm sending out too broad of a
Yep.
message, and
You have to niche.
I don't know it. I think it's because I haven't really, when I decide what I want to do, I'm very, I'm excited. I can get there quickly because I know exactly
But
what.
you're stuck
but
in
I
the mud
don't
on the
have-
deciding phase.
It's right. I don't have that traction going towards a certain direction because I'll start to go that way, and I'm like, I don't know. I really like this too. And oh, look at that. That's shiny. And then so I go into so many different directions, and I think that that's why I'm not getting anywhere, because I'm not only confusing everybody else but myself.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I do the coaching I do, and it's one of the
I think
reasons
that's what I need.
it's one of the reasons I do the coaching and the training piece that I do, because I get to interact with different people and I get to learn about different industries, I get to learn about different things. So for me, I get to feed all those interests. And I'm going to guess in your top 4 driving forces, one of them is called intellectual. It's knowledge. It's intellectual and instinctive, and it's how we like to use knowledge. People who are on the instinctive side want the knowledge they need just to be able to apply it for specific reasons. Where people on the intellectual side like knowledge for the sake of gaining and acquiring knowledge. So one's about acquiring and one's about applying. Now you can have a little bit of both, but I'm going to guess you're probably leaning more toward on the stronger side of the intellectual side of gaining knowledge for the sake of gaining it.
It's like
when you've
thinking,
got somebody that's
talking, and
in
planning
university,
about it, but not actually putting action into making it happen. And I am at that part where I have gained and gained and gained all this. You're right, I think about it, I think about it, I think about it, I think about it, but I'm not actually doing it yet. And I'm to the point where I'm like, I'm ready to start putting